case out of New Jersey for Christopher Gregor continues. This video is going to cover some more of the witness testimony from the Christopher Gregor Trial out of New Jersey. There's been testimony from Dr. Nancy Deacon, who was a pediatrician who saw Correy, Dr. Aung at the Jersey Shore Emergency Department. There's testimony from a registered nurse, a forensic pathologist, and many more. So stay with us as we cover the witness testimony. Hi, I'm Deborah Lelli, and if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on all upcoming videos. Let's get started. So Dr. Aung starts his testimony by stating that he did see Correy. He talks about the reason why Correy was there, which the chief complaint was for bruising. He talks about the different areas where he saw the bruising. He mentions that some particular bruising was in different stages, that he couldn't tell whether the bruising took place an hour ago, a day ago. He went on to say that everything else was pretty normal besides the bruising. He discharged Correy and recommended that he see a child abuse specialist because of the bruising.
I did from head to toe examination, and then we marked down all the bruises, scratches in the diagram. I put everything in my chart. So head to toe examination, we saw some bruises on the head, some bruises on the body, and some bruises on the back and legs. And neurologically, we do the cranial nerve examination, basically neurologically intact. He has no neurological deficit. He is active, alert, and not in distress. And any signs of failure and chest examination within the normal limit. I did not hear any respiratory distress, wheezing, murmurs, hypoxia. He has nothing. And abdominal examination, abdomen is soft, no signs of acute abdomen. That means no tenderness, no pain, and no heart inconsistency by palpations. And physical genital examination within the normal limit. All four limbs examinations, motor is intact, sensory is intact, saw only bruises, scratches. Other than that, we did not see any.
Dr. Aung basically is explaining that Correy was basically fine, just for some minor bruising. I'm going to fast forward some of his testimony as they go more into depth into more of the findings. But I will post a link in the description if you do want to watch the full testimony.
And when you discharged Correy from the hospital, did you observe any symptoms of sepsis or infection or broken bones or any of these things?
No.
So when it's the defense attorney's opportunity to cross the doctor, the defense attorney begins by asking questions regarding whether the prosecutor prepped the doctor to answer some of these questions. They ask questions regarding the possibility of whether a child and an adult can develop sicknesses different, or whether a child develops a sickness more rapidly than an adult. These are some of the questions that the defense attorney asks the doctor. But all in all, the cross of the doctor is pretty short.
Prior to coming here today, did you speak to the prosecution?
Yes, I did.
They prepped you for your testimony on direct, correct?
Not really.
When you say not really, they asked you questions.
Yes.
They told you what they were going to ask you, correct?
No. They said you will ask me questions. We're going to ask all of those my findings. That's about it. They did not prep me.
Well, let's break down your answer for a second so that I understand.
Mm-hmm.
You said they didn't prep you, but did they ask you questions when you met with them?
Right.
And you reviewed your chart, correct?
Right.
The defense attorney also asked the doctor about the records that indicated that Correy was dehydrated and the steps that they took because of that.
Were they slightly dehydrated?
Yes.
Did your office or hospital administer any fluids to him?
No. Because he's very mild dehydrated. His vital signs are stable, so he doesn't need IV dehydration. We offer water, juice, snacks, everything, because very mild dehydration and patient can take PO. At that time, we did not give any IV fluids.
You also stated that the bruises you saw were in different levels of healing.
Yes,
Some were a few hours old approximately.
I cannot. A few hours mean maybe 1 hour to 40 hours, 80 hours. Few hours mean.
You happened to review medical records while you were examining Correy from ID Pediatrics.
No,
So you didn't see the bruising chart from ID Pediatrics.
no,
So you wouldn't have been able to compare it to your own.
no.
Do you expect a child's heart rate to be quicker than adults?
Yes, because they are in the high metabolic state. That's why heart rate is always higher than adult.
And does sickness present in a different way in a child than it does in an adult?
Yes, differently.
For example, a child can de-escalate very quickly.
Yes.
Next state's witness that I want to talk about is Matthew Scutti. His testimony is pretty lengthy. He did have a lot of involvement in the case. To summarize his testimony, he begins by providing the involvement in the case. The first things that he did was he went to Christopher Gregor's house. He took photos of the home, then secured the home. The first time that he went to the home, he did just a general sweep of the house, did the same thing to the mother's home, then went to the hospital. He talks about the photographs that were taken of Correy's body, of the different organs in Correy's body. Mr. Gregor gets very emotional during the testimony, and I'm going to show you just some clips of that.
So S97 is a scaled photo of a abrasion type injury on his head,
When you say beside you and Correy, right?
Correy's head.
And could you tell me when you say scaled, what you mean by that?
So the measurements you see there, we actually put a scale next to all injuries or anything we think of notice. And the reason for that is we can always then go back and blow that picture up 1-to-1 to make it so it's the real life size of what it was when we took the picture.
And is this picture from the set of photos that you told me before the actual examination of internal examination of Correy begins?
That is correct. We do all the exterior injuries and exterior photos before any internal examination begins.
And in fact, do you take pictures, or you have your unit take pictures of the body at the hospital before it's even brought to the morgue and the autopsy, correct?
That is correct.
Next slide, please. Looking at S98, could you describe what S98 is?
S98 is behind Correy's, I believe, right ear. It depicts what we believe was bruising.
And S99, please, the next photo. Could you please describe what appears in S99?
S99 is his upper chest and neck with an abrasion on his neck, and also the marking from the medical equipment that was on his upper left shoulder.
Next slide, please. Could you please describe what's depicted in S100?
S100 is an abrasion on his right, almost lower back and hip.
Could you please go to the next slide? And in S101, could you describe what's in there?
So S101 is what when we roll him over during the autopsy, that would be his back or his posterior, as we call it. And that depicts bruising that was on his upper back.
After the autopsy is done, the detective goes back to Christopher Gregor's home. He states that now that the autopsy was complete, he had a better idea and he knew what to search for in the home. So he does go back to the home. He does locate some items that he believes are of evidentiary value, which are some clothing items of Correy. Now, during the defense cross-examination, the defense takes the opportunity to ask him about the search of Brianna's house, the mother, and the items that she had in the basement, because that is where she resided And when Correy spent the night after they got back from the hospital, he slept there with her in the basement. And there was one particular item that was concerning and can potentially be concerning to a jury.
Showing you it's been marked as defense exhibits 11, 12, and 13. Do you recognize those?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And are those pictures from Miss Brianna Michelot's apartment?
Correct.
And are those the pictures that were taken by your unit at the time that they searched the apartment?
Yes, sir.
And are those pictures of the basement, if you know?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and that's a bedroom in the basement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, in D11, is there a picture in there with 2 beds, it looks like?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then there's like a little TV area, right, with 2 little seats?
Correct.
Okay. And the next one, D12, is another picture basically of the same?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the same bedroom, right?
Yes, sir.
And D13 is a picture of the same bedroom with a ladder in the middle of the room with a hole in the ceiling. Now, I know sometimes CSI needs to do stuff, you know, they take walls, they take different things. Was that ladder there, or is that something that your unit put there to do anything?
No, we did not put that there.
Okay, so that ladder was already sitting there.
Yes, sir.
Lauren, I don't.
The next witnesses that I want to talk about are the nurses that were working at the hospital the day that Christopher Gregor took Correy to the hospital. The first one is going to be the registered nurse that was down in Triage. Triage nurse, his name was William Doyle, and this is the first registered nurse that encounters Christopher Gregor. Doyle testifies that Christopher was explaining that he had an emergency, but that based on Christopher's demeanor, he didn't feel that it was urgent until he actually had a glimpse of Correy's face, which is when he escalated the situation.
The first time that you observed the defendant with Correy, can you explain to the jurors the position of Correy in relation to the defendant?
Correy was over. Correy was in Chris's arms. His arms were over Chris's shoulders. His legs were dangling. His arms did not look like they had much movement to them. His legs did not look like they had much movement to him. His head was rested on Chris's shoulder. His head was his face was difficult to visualize. So when I first approached them, I knew that something was concerning, but I couldn't see everything I needed to see. So I was depending on Chris to convey a sense of urgency or unwellness that I did not get from him at first. It was more of a clinical description of what was going on, and I did not immediately feel I had to rush them back. I definitely knew it was concerning, but I needed just a little more information. If I saw Correy's face right away, it would have been much easier. But Correy's face was on Chris's shoulder.
Immediate observations were you able to make of Correy in the lobby area?
So I went over to them, and I was splitting my attention between Chris and Correy. What I could tell was that there wasn't a lot of spontaneous movement from Correy. He was not really moving on his own. He appeared to have lack of tone to his muscles, and there was a lot of support coming from Chris in keeping him in the position that he was in.
Video surveillance of when Christopher Gregor pulls up to the emergency room and when he enters the emergency room. So I will show you those clips as well.
I did not see him until he was already in the waiting room.
Okay. Now, is that you depicted in that video?
Yes,
And
yes.
and can you tell the jurors what that is, please?
That is a CD which contains video of possible security footage from that day, April 2nd.
And is that another surveillance video following the previous video, which would have been baked?
Yes,
And you're familiar with that video?
yes,
And you've seen it before you've come to court today?
yes,
And you're actually depicted in this video?
I am.
Your Honor,
Questions that I believe was worth pointing out was where the vehicle was left.
Any other videos in this case?
No.
Any other videos from the hospital?
No.
Is it fair to say when Correy got out of the vehicle, he stepped out of the vehicle?
I can't see that.
When we watched the video before, did you see him start to walk?
That did not look like that to me.
And when Mr. Gregor went into the hospital, he went straight into the hospital, correct?
Mhm.
When he parked
Yes,
his car, oh, sorry.
I meant to say yes.
I appreciate that. When Mr. Gregor parked his car, he parked at the front of the hospital.
Yes.
And do you know, how long had you been working at that hospital at that point?
7 years.
And is it normal practice for a patient to park and leave their car in front of the hospital?
In a situation that's emergent, I wouldn't say normal, but it's understandable.
And at the time that you approached Correy and Mr. Gregor, did you realize that he had left his car at the front of the hospital?
No, that thought didn't come to my mind.
Fair enough.
The next state's witness is the next nurse that Christopher Gregor saw, Lindsey Carnevale. Does go into talking about her conversation with Christopher Gregor. She says that he was emotionless during the interaction with Correy in the room. She says that he talked about Brianna and how she was a drug addict. She mentions that he talked about the bruising and how he got those because of football. But I do want to show you the surveillance video that the state introduced through this witness because I think that's pretty important.
permission to play publish, admit into evidence S48D, S48E, and S48F.
Mr. Lucci, any objection?
None, Judge.
Jurors, who is located on that video?
One of our nurses, Jamie.
And does that accurately depict the defendant leaving room 6 for the first time on April 2nd of 2021?
Yes,
And there was a timestamp on that video?
yes, there was.
And is the timestamp accurate that was on that video?
No.
Can you tell the jurors who is located on that video?
Chris Gregor and one of the techs, Richard.
And what area of the hospital does the video show?
The hallway going to the family waiting room.
Now, can you tell the jurors who is located on that video?
Chris Gregor, Jenna Shaw, Jamie Jocelyn, one of our techs.
And Jenna Shaw, who would that be? Would that be the
The
blonde?
nurse manager, yeah, the blonde.
And does that video accurately depict the defendant entering room 6 where you were located with Correy?
Yes,
And does that video accurately depict the defendant entering room 6 where you were located with Correy?
yes.
And can you tell the jurors what was going on with Correy's condition during the time of that video while inside room 6?
We were providing CPR, breathing for him.
And did you see a machine present in that video?
Yeah, Jamie went to grab a Doppler
And what would be the purpose of a Doppler?
to see if we can find pulses that we can't feel.
And this would have been at approximately 4:51.
I believe so.
And after this time period, did the defendant then ever come back into room 6?
No,
The defense's turn to cross-examine her. The defense tries to make a big deal about the videos that were provided because this nurse is a member of the Justice for Correy group, and she, on direct, mentioned that Christopher Gregor showed no emotion. The videos do show that he was clearly emotional.
Room 6, did you have an opportunity to see Christopher come in?
When he walked in briefly, yes.
Okay, great. By the way, are you a member of Justice for Corey?
Yeah.
So now you see him brought in,
Mm-hmm.
and then you don't pay any more attention to him.
No.
Okay, so you don't see them bring a chair over for him to sit in.
No, that was outside the room. I was
Okay.
inside the room.
Okay, so you don't see them bring, how big's the room?
Not very big.
Okay, so if this is the bed that Corey's in, where are you?
Right next to the bed.
Okay, so you're here. Where's the doorway?
That way.
How far?
A couple feet.
By their desk or closer to their desk?
Closer to the desk.
Okay. Is that right?
I guess, yeah.
Well, I wasn't there.
Yes.
Okay, so you're saying you're standing here and you don't see them bring a chair, you don't see him crying, you don't see any of that?
I didn't see them bring a chair, no.
Okay, did you see it just now?
I did.
Okay, did you see them have to bring screens to give him privacy?
We do that with every.
Did you do it in this one? I don't care about everybody else. Was it done?
It's common
Okay,
practice, yes.
okay, but it was done, right?
Yes.
Okay, was he having a breakdown? You don't know. Well, did you just watch the video?
I did. I saw the video.
Okay, when you saw the video, did you see him cry?
I saw him cry.
Did you see him show emotion?
Yeah.
Did you see him upset?
I guess.
Okay. Did you see him have to sit in a chair?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see people have to come to his aid? Did
Yes.
you see him put up privacy screens? You
Yes.
saw all that, right?
We always do that,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, you always do. But you did in this case, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So he was not emotionless. Right? We just saw the video.
He had lack of emotion.
Okay.
There's another state witness, Richard Cicerone, that I'm not going to play clips of his testimony. Parts to his testimony, he testifies outside the presence of the jury. There's a small hearing to decide what parts of a phone call are going to be introduced. He works for DCP&P. And if you want to hear the phone call, I can put a comment on what time that it will be played so you can hear it. But it's basically when Christopher Gregor called and tells them that Correy had just arrived home and the allegations that he was making, stating basically that Brianna had told him to state that the bruises were caused by Christopher Gregor. The last doctor that I want to quickly cover is Dr. Thomas Andrew. He's a forensic pathologist. Dr. Thomas Andrew makes a medical conclusion of Correy's death, statements about the injury behind Correy's ear. So I'm going to play you those two clips.
Also reviewed autopsy photos.
Yes.
Do you have an opinion after you reviewed all of this material in regard to the decedent's cause of death?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors what that opinion is?
I'm simply going to quote from my report because it's a mouthful and we'll break it down. But Correy died of blunt impact injuries of the chest and abdomen with laceration of the heart, left pulmonary contusion, and laceration and contusion of the liver.
Jurors, what S98, the photograph depicts.
A contusion up behind the ear is, it really requires some sort of explanation. That's an injury that at least raises, it's not diagnostic enough, but it raises the question of mistreatment of a child.
And why would that raise that?
Well, because it's a protected area. It's not normally injured like in a slip and fall or something. Now, if you fall against something, that it could conceivably, press your ear, hard enough against that bony part, the mastoid process there. But most of the time, at least in my experience, it's generally associated with other injuries that suggest mistreatment.
Now showing you, or it's up in the courtroom, what's been marked into evidence S152B. Can you tell the jurors what that is?
I received this image subsequent to my initial report. but I received it in conjunction with this question about timing. We already talked about the video at 9 o'clock. It has been represented to me, and I believe there's been some sort of analysis on the photograph that indicates it was taken, you know, on or about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. To me, I don't know, I mean, Correy could be sleeping, but it's certainly not inconsistent at all with him already having had sustained what were ultimately his fatal injuries. And you know, he presents an hour later to the emergency room looking not much different than that, save for the fact that he was, you know, his vital signs weren't stable and his color was ashy.
So, doctor, would that photograph be consistent with your opinion regarding the timing of the blunt force trauma injury?
Yes.
Doctor, in conclusion, based upon everything that you have reviewed, what is your medical opinion regarding the cause and manner of death of Correy?
Correy Michelot died of blunt impact injury of the chest and abdomen with laceration of the heart, contusion of the left lung, and laceration and contusion of the liver. It's a traumatic cause. The manner of death is homicide. It was at the hands of another person. He didn't do it himself, and it didn't happen accidentally.
The defense attorney does a very good job of cross-examining the doctor. However, based on the length of this video, I'm going to cover it in my upcoming video, so don't forget to subscribe and activate the notification bell so you can watch the next video. As always, if you have any questions or comments, make sure you drop them in the comments below, and until next time.